Hello and welcome to our second video lecture for Module 2 in the Struggle for Democracy, SSC 120. We're covering Chapter 9, Political Parties. We have our usual list of 10 study guide questions, and we do have an essay based upon Federalist Paper number 51 and John Madison's warning of political parties or factions, which I will describe them a little bit later. So here's Donald Trump campaigning in North Carolina, and I brought with me today some things. Let's see if I can do this right. Here is Donald Trump for president 2016. Got the money there going pretty good. Oddly enough, he was well outspent by Hillary Clinton, but still won the campaign. It's very interesting. Political parties in democratic society, and what are they? Well, a political party is basically an organized group that helps keep elected officials responsive. Their main job is to get people elected, but keeps them responsive. They stimulate political interest on issues. It is used to hold people accountable, helps people make sense of complexity of the many issues in politics, and frankly, makes government work, get her done. Here's Bernie Sanders, a future to believe in. And this is a presidential candidate. He's a U.S. senator that really nudged the left agenda of redistributing wealth and had a huge campaign following in 2016, running again in 2020. So we have a two-party system, and the rules of the game kind of support two parties, where other countries have multi-parties. And we'll talk a bit about minority parties in American politics. So the rules of the game. We use what's called proportional representation. That is, the number of seats in a legislature, state or national, are apportioned by a percentage of the vote. So that would be in a country like England, where they have parliamentary elections, and if the party wins 51% of the vote, they get 51% of the seats. And we don't do it that way. We use single member plurality elections. It's number 46. What feature of American politics prevents third parties from taking hold in the United States? And that is winner take all pluralities. So we have single member districts. People run just in that district. And whoever gets the most votes in that district wins. And Duverger's law says it's almost impossible at that point to break in a third party. There's disincentives. And so we tend to have a presidential system versus using this system as opposed to the proportional representation, which we call a parliamentary system. So it does put real restrictions on the growth of parties. We'll look at the 8 active parties in Ohio. Mondo Politics says 9, but one of them doesn't work anymore. But so parties like the Green Party, which focuses on the environment, they can't get any seats. So it's all about the Electoral College. To elect the President of the United States, as opposed to a U.S. Senator, which is popular vote in the state, or a U.S. Representative, which is a district, and in this district, that's Bob Latta. The Electoral College is a map of winner-take-all by states. And so here's a criticism of the Electoral College. The Electoral College is not what the defenders say it is, from David Edward Burke, and this is September 7, 2019, and it has an extra point question attached to it. And why do conservatives defend the Electoral College? So read the article, and conservatives defend it because since the Republicans are on the demographic minority side, they're not growing as fast, they want to keep the Electoral College. 2 of their candidates, and that would be GW, 2 in 2000, as well as Donald J. Trump in 2016, won the Electoral College, but lost the popular vote. Bush to Al Gore and Trump to Clinton. And so if you can win without getting the popular vote, you want to keep that system. The other part of that article, I should mention, is the fallacy. They bring up the fallacy, which is the Electoral College believes that places are people. right? The state casts votes. States don't vote. People vote. So that's kind of the fallacy of it. Minority parties are becoming less important. They used to be a little bit more prevalent at one particular point in time, and it tells you the different parties that are there. So here is Ralph Nader running for president in '08, Nader Gonzalez, striving for 5% of the vote, because 5% of the vote gets you some public funding. And in 2000, again, Al Gore winning the popular vote, losing the electoral vote, but with Ralph Nader, Ross Perot, these other candidates getting percentages that prevented the Democrat from winning. And he's a liberal. So his own liberal fringe part of his party kept Al Gore from becoming president. So our two-party system has different eras. We'll look at new party, the de-alignment, and polarization. So it started with the Federalist Party. And number 42 says, what is political party realignment? So realignment is the transition of one party in control to another. At the beginning of the Constitution, the Federalist Party, the party of Washington, Adams, Hamilton, were president for a period of time. But starting in 1800 and eventually moving forward to 1832, the Democratic Republican Party, which is Thomas Jefferson and Monroe, got a foothold. Eventually, that became what we know today as the Democratic Party, which grew out of a war hero, Jackson, who lost the 1824 election, but eventually came back to win the election by using political party conventions. The Whigs had a hold in parties. They had roots in the Democratic Republicans, but eventually it was the Republican Party starting in 1954, the grand old party formed by Abraham Lincoln, has now created the Republicans. So we've had the Democrats and Republicans for some time. If you look at it, the Republicans dominated starting in 1900 through 32. So when the Depression hit in 1929, the party lost power. Franklin Delano Roosevelt put together, and that is the realignment, he created a New Deal of Democrats, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt held that with the Democrats up until '68, which was a fractious time of the Vietnam War, and you had the left part of the Democratic Party splintering votes, the conservatives in the Democratic Party rushing to the Republicans, and so then we had what's called de-alignment from '68 to '96, when people started to move away from either party and the rise of independence. And then we've had since '96, what I should mention, in '68 to '96, Ronald Reagan getting elected in 1980 was a bit of a minor realignment, bringing the conservatives back to power. And then polarization. From '96 forward, we've just had a handful. It's Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. It's Clinton, it's Bush, it's Obama, and now Trump. That's been the story for several years. 2 Clintons, 3 Bushes, a Trump. So, and 2 Barack Obama. So that particular polarization of the parties being on opposite sides of each other and neither being able to have firm control. So the New Deal, the modern Democratic Party, built a coalition around urban areas and the working class citizen. And they supported an expansion of federal powers to help solve the Great Depression, things like Social Security. So here's Franklin Roosevelt. Note, he's the one with the hand on the right, shaking hands. Franklin suffered from polio as he grew a bit older and often had hands to hold on to his handles, to hold on to his speaking podium, and often went in cars. I think today that would be a much more difficult proposition. The de-alignment era is divided government with a president of one party and a Congress of another. And it really got, it was kind of a splitting that happened when the Democratic Party started to support civil rights. And a large group of the Democratic Party was conservative South. Religious conservatives then left their party, and then the anti-war sentiment came in as well. So if you look at, here's the presidential election and the map in 1960, and then again in 2012, and 2016 is not that much different. And you can see particularly that the Democratic South and Southwest in blue in 1960 that supported John Kennedy is now almost all red from those conservatives moving over. The flip is the red Florida going to blue because of migration from the north and east. If you look at Ohio, Ohio is red in 1960, but then blue in 2012 for Obama. Now, here's one of the extra credit points, and it's important to understand this. In 1960, when John Kennedy ran for president, Ohio had 25 electoral votes. They were a big powerhouse. What's happened is Ohio's population has grown, but other states in the South and Midwest have grown faster, and Ohio only had 18 electoral votes in the last two presidential elections of 12 and 16. So we're considered a hot state for candidates to come to because we're both red and blue, but we're losing electoral power. And that has a direct translation to getting benefits from the federal government. The polarization era has created increasing ideology with open hostilities, people tweeting and yelling and commercials back and forth, a lot of emotional appeals, absolutely no one running to the center, everybody running to their base and the edges and getting people to vote. The cause is liberal and conservative advocacy groups and media groups. So you tend to only listen to media that suits your ideology. And an increasing number of what are called safe districts, where representatives are elected time and time and time again. There's no way to challenge them. It's a one-party district. Here's the boiling point. That's Mr. Wilson from South Carolina. Obama is doing the State of the Union address talking about health care and the ACA, and he is pointing his finger and saying out loud, "You lied." And this is part of that polarization. So the three functions of today's political parties, which is at the heart of the essay number 41, and these are the three things that you have to connect. Parties, first of all, provide an ideological organization. The Republicans tend to be conservative. The Democrats tend to be liberal. The parties also provide electoral organizations. Now, Donald Trump used the Republican Party, and he does lean conservative. I would say Barack Obama does lean liberal and used the Democratic Party. Somebody like Clinton, both Hillary and Bill, they were very much in the center of the party organism. The Bushes, both Bushes, were in the Republican Party, but not necessarily in the center of it. So the party is part of an electoral organization to help people win elections. And lastly, once you win, then you carry out and govern. So Obama gets elected and does the governing through the ACA, the Health Care Act. Donald Trump building a border wall and having a trade war with tariffs and China. So what is an ideology? Well, it's a coherent or organized set of beliefs, and it's a loose criteria. We don't have people carry cards around, but they're loosely connected. And the party base is number 44. What is the party base? And that's what political parties use. It's their core supporters, and they're used to mobilize voters and do a lot of the work for the party. So I would say party membership, party ID, big variable, and it's the most important variable in the 2016 election. That again is one of the extra credit questions that we'll come to in Chapter 10. And I would say Democrats have a small lead in party identification, in part because of demographics. Independents, number 49. What aspect of recent American politics best explains the growth of people identifying with being an independent? And that has been the failure of political parties to get things done, their inactivity and their ineffectiveness, and the increased partisanship between them has kind of pushed more and more people to say, I don't want to be in any party. I want to be an independent. There are several people that did not vote for either of the two major presidential candidates in 2016, and that was pretty incredible. So here's the Democrats and Republicans and how they're different. The Democrat tends to favor higher taxes and government spending and the use of social programs to help the poor. Whereas Republicans want lower taxes and tax breaks, particularly for corporations and small and medium businesses. They want less government spending, and they want social programs to be regulated, highly regulated, or curtailed or go away. Same-sex marriage, which has now been decided by the Supreme Court, Democrats support it, Republicans not. Church and state, Democrats want a stronger line of no religion, whereas Republicans are okay having a mix. So here's the trends in party identification. You can see the red line of the Republicans going down, the blue line of the Democrats also going down, and the rise of the independents. Presidential election by county. Ooh, there's like 3,000 counties. They're kind of red. That's right. By county, we're a very Republican conservative place. But by city, where there's a lot more voters and 90% of our population is in an urban area, then that's how you get that blue balance to the map. So parties as now electoral organizations, they help with donations and organizing and finding out what's the best candidate to run. So they also hold a national party, the party convention, every 4 years, number 45. What are the outcomes of a national political party convention? So the example would be in 2016, the Republicans met in Cleveland, where I was living at the time. So they nominated Donald Trump and Pence. I would note John Kasich was the governor, was one of the candidates, wouldn't even come. A lot of ideology there. They also write a party platform on things like immigration or abortion. And then they rewrite their party rules. So nominate, write platform, and rewrite rules. The Democrats, for example, rewrote the rules in 2012 to permit superdelegates, which gave Hillary Clinton a huge advantage over Bernie Sanders. And there was a lot of tension in the 2016 Democratic, which I believe was in Philadelphia, if I remember correctly, because Bernie supporters would literally hold up signs saying, "We won this state," when they were casting votes for Hillary. So, number 43, what are the party's candidates nominated for office? What is the way to do it? And almost all are now by primary, some by caucus or by meetings. And then number 48, what body governs the major political parties? And each party has a national committee, Republican National Committee and Democratic National Committee. They conduct the party business between the conventions, and they also help to serve as a campaign organization to the 50 states. So here's the hierarchical one or a network one. I think a lot of candidates today use a more network structure. Here's Obama giving the keynote address at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. He's not the candidate, but he gave a stirring address and clearly set himself up for 2008 and 2012. Here's 2016 with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And number 47, what is the connection of the presidential nominees like Clinton and Trump to their party's official platform? Remember, you do a platform at the convention. The answer is not much. The technical answer is that the political candidate who wins the nomination need not adhere to either the letter or the spirit of the platform. Now, in a parliamentary government, you're running on that platform. It's the heart of your campaign. In a presidential, it's about person versus person, in this case, Trump versus Clinton, and who's going to win. And the platform is more about the base and feeling good about being in the party. Congressional campaign committees, lots of money controlled by members of Congress, and there's some good stories about women and other people that were on the outside of the party getting elected this last go-around, particularly women in the Democratic Party, where clearly they ran against established candidates because of the parties were considered disaffected by the citizens. So powerful in election campaigns, number 50. The National Party Committee wields what important power? The National Party directs media campaigns and fundraising. So they can literally take control of the House or the Senate by funneling money in key districts. Interest groups that wield and don't wield their influence. So AFL-CIO for the Democrats, American for Prosperity for the Republicans, putting millions of dollars into campaigns. So parties as governing organization. This is the third function. So parties provide ideology, election, and governing. This is the heart of the essay. So parties are a critical organization. They help elected officials organize their policy goals, and they help bridge the separation of powers. And there is divisions, both economic and social splits, in every party. If you compare the 2004 National Party delegates to other Americans, you'll find that Democrats tend to be a little bit more liberal, and Republicans that go to the convention tend to be more conservative. And that's very true of political parties. So here, if you look at Democrats, again, liberal, independents kind of split, and Republicans conservative. Here's the polarization between the parties, and notice the House and Democrat mean drifting further and further. The lines are getting further apart. And here's party divisions where you have, for example, red is Republican and blue is Democrat. And you'll see sometimes with a red president and a blue bar, or a blue president and a red bar. So presidents have to learn to work in these polarized times with members of the other party. Our interactive exercise is from Mondo Politics, who lists the political parties of Ohio: Communist, Constitutional, Green, Libertarian, Natural Law, the Ohio Democrats, the Ohio Republicans, the Reform Party, and the Socialist Workers. I think the Natural Law Party has gone by the wayside. The link wasn't there. So Mondo will say there's 9, but there's actually 8. So I think the question, I answer 9 because that's how much they say. And then I pick one, which was the Reform Party of Ohio. The Reform Party of Ohio rarely wins any seats, but they're a one-issue party, and they believe in kind of a moderate government that tackles big problems. And their big problem that they like to go after is the gross national debt. Now, this is a rolling clock. If you go to this website, you'll see it all the time, and that's 22.5 plus a lot of zeros, growing every day, Republican or Democrat. And they're trying to bring attention to that particular deal. Well, that's all I've got. I hope this was a good lecture for you on political parties, 10 study guides, and an essay.